least in storyline, it's happening here on the December 6th Raw. Stephanie would try to get Triple H to sign an annulment, and he instead wants her to go in the shower with him. And the fans in the background are actually cheering Triple H on because he's sort of the face at this point. And this is the cool, edgy heel here, but that's over. Eventually, later in the show, Triple H comes down to the ring with some flowers, and he's jawing with fans, and they're all chanting that he's an asshole. And he chastises them for crapping all over Stephanie when she was pouring her heart out to all of these fans. And he said they're calling her names like slut. And he says, you know, she's not a slut. I'd never marry a slut. And she comes to him with papers and blames him for the fans ruining what was a great thing, and cries for a moment. And he fake cries and calls her out and says, you know, he'll let her have what she wants. Talk me through this whole annulment storyline, because eventually, you know, Vince McMahon's involved.
Well, yeah, the whole idea was you wanted people to truly believe that she wed against her will, that she is drugged. And the backstory is we'll come to find out, was one that they're really in cahoots here. Stephanie and Triple H, and that she actually fell in love with him, and so on and so forth. So it's all part of a ruse now to basically sucker Vince in.
And they're setting up a match here for Triple H and Vince McMahon, but there's a restraining order, so Vince can't do anything now. And some of this is really good promo work by Triple H. But as we get ready to build towards this a few days later on SmackDown, Test apologizes to Stephanie. Stephanie gives him back the ring. They both cried, and they're about to kiss when Triple H has X-Pac do a run in. And at the Armageddon pay-per-view, it finally happens. Triple H and Vince McMahon wrestle. And at the end of the match, Triple H gets a pipe, but then puts the pipe down and grabs the sledgehammer. There's a couple of low blows back and forth. Eventually Stephanie's in there, and Triple H is teasing that he's going to hit Stephanie with the sledgehammer, but then he drops the sledgehammer, and then they hug and kiss to end the show. And what do you know? It looks like Stephanie, who's been portrayed as this damsel in distress, the good girl for all these months, is now making a heel turn. This is all Vince and Triple H doing this.
Yep. Ship off the old block. God damn it. She's a natural heel.
It's worth mentioning the next night, Raw crushes in the ratings. So even though we're sort of poking fun at this, man, it was over here. Overall, Raw is going to double Nitro in every head-to-head quarter except the main event, doing a 6.1 rating. Nitro is going to fall to a 2.82 rating. So it's incredible. On that show, Vince is in the ring calling out Triple H and calling him a rapist and a coward. Triple H's music hits, but instead it's Stephanie wearing leather pants. And she talks about bashing his brains in with a sledgehammer. And, she says, like it or not, we're married. And it's always been about Vince, even at the expense of his own family. And she loved Andrew, but did not want to get married. Fans start to call her a bitch, and she says she's not daddy's little girl anymore. She's going to do things her way, and it feels damn good. She says she used to get butterflies when Triple H would look at her, and she didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And she liked how he stood up to Vince and made business personal. And she reminded Vince that he allowed her to be abducted. And she talked about how she was sacrificed simply so he could screw Austin. And what goes around comes around. And the best way to get back at dear old dad is to marry the man he hates the most. That's what really turns her on. And Vince looks ill. Triple H and Stephanie kiss. And I gotta say, pretty good finish to the storyline here, is it not?
Yeah, I thought it was great. And it was, again, it was a reaction to the crowd reactions already. The audience wasn't buying Steph at this point. And Hunter was doing things that were cool. So they were getting into that, and they liked that he had gotten the girl, and the whole shit with Vince, they weren't buying as a baby face. And so her turning heel made sense, and they loved to boo her. They still love to boo her. She's a natural heel.
How would Cornette describe her?
She's a heel, motherfucker. God damn, fuck her. She's a heel.